That means that it's something that people talk about, but they don't really understand what it is. Therefore, they say so-called. Right? The so-called law of gravitation, which sustains the planets, is described herein as the potency of the Lord. Of course, the law of gravitation, the scientists don't really understand. They have explanations for it, but they don't really understand it because they don't see Krishna, but Krishna is there. The so-called law of gravitation, which sustains the planets. Yeah, this law of gravitation that sustains the planets. Well, they talk about the law of gravitation, but the planets are actually held in orbit by Krishna himself, by his transcendental potencies. And if Krishna doesn't do that, they would just separate and then become pulverized and disappear. The planets, when they're held in their let's say trajectories, it's by the potency of the Lord. Without that, they just will separate and then disintegrate in space. So, it says, the so-called law of gravitation, which sustains the planets, is described herein as the potency of the Lord. This potency is invested by the Lord in the way that an expert sacrificial Brahmana puts fire in the Arani wood by the potency of Vedic mantras. Whoa! So we see at the basis of let's say this universal engineering are Vedic mantras, not steel ladders and steel or metal this or metal that. Vedic mantras are creating things, moving things, and so forth. The potency is invested by the Lord in the way that an expert sacrificial Brahmana puts fire in the Arani wood by the potency of Vedic mantras. By this arrangement, the world becomes habitable for both the moving and non-moving creatures. The conditioned souls, who are residents of the material world, are put in the womb of a mother, in the womb of Mother Earth, in the same way the seed of a child is put by the father in the womb of the mother. This conception of the Lord and the earth as father and mother is explained in Bhagavad Gita 14:4. Conditioned souls are devoted to the motherland in which they take their birth. But they do not know their father. The father is not independent in producing children. Similarly, material nature cannot produce living creatures unless in contact with the Supreme Father, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us to offer obeisances unto the mother along with the Father, the Supreme Lord, because it is the Father only who impregnates the mother with all energies for the sustenance and maintenance of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. So, what we see on the microscopic level is happening on the macroscopic level. On the microscopic level, we see that a man and woman come together and they produce progeny or children by their interaction. That is happening on a gigantic level also. And so we see that the microscopic world and the macroscopic world, many similar things are happening in very subtle ways. So here it says that the mother is not independent in producing children. Similarly, material nature cannot produce living creatures unless in contact with the Supreme Father, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us to offer obeisances unto the mother along with the Father, the Supreme Lord. Well, what does it mean exactly? Most people, most scientists, of course, they might talk about Mother Nature, but they don't talk so much about Father. They just take half of the story and not the whole story, and that's why they are not able to do so many things, because they don't have the full picture. We have to read the Bhagavatam to get the full picture of how these mysterious things that we're seeing with our eyes but not understanding are happening. And there are many mysterious things that the scientists don't understand. They give their speculative theories about them, but they also change their theories often. When they do more and more, let's say, experimentation, they change their theories, because their previous theories don't exactly explain or don't have enough predictability to be a real theory or a valid theory. Okay, so here, when it says the so-called law of gravitation, which sustains the planets, is described herein as the potency of the Lord. Okay, so how is this happening? The potency of the Lord. It's happening in a very subtle way. And we're not, you can't see it physically. You can see the result physically, but you can't see how the planets are being held in space. And if that invisible potency of the Lord is retracted, all the planets just would fly away and not be able to stay in orbits, and eventually they would all disintegrate and become powdered. So this is, who is maintaining the planets in orbits? They can put a little rocket in space and keep it in an orbit for some time, and then it comes down again. But who is maintaining these gigantic planets in their orbits? You see, you have to, you can't deny it, that there is some supernatural power that's doing it, and it's not a let's say and there's some supernatural person who's controlling all this. It's by, there are different ways of knowing something. You can know something also by comparisons. Okay? You can know something by just seeing it. You can know something by hearing about it. But we can learn a lot by comparisons. If the Americans or the Russians, they put a satellite, like, just like they had the space, what do you call that? Yeah, the space, what do you call that? Space station. They had the space station. By the way, they're getting rid of it now. But they had it up there for years, right? And they were maintaining it. It's only about, let's say, 300-400 miles up in space. It's not really like, millions of miles away. It's very close. and they maintain it for years. Now they're getting rid of it, of course. So uh, you look now by comparison, they were able to keep a space station that's not real big, right, in the air for like let's say 10 years or 15 years, and now it's going down. Who's keeping the real space stations, meaning the planets in orbit, for millions of years, right? So you learn by comparison also. You can learn many things by comparison. So we have to admit, if and how many people went into building the space station and then putting it up in the space and then maintaining it in space and so forth. You know, if you look at that, it takes many, many people to do that. Right? And many, many years also of, you know, manufacturing all the different parts and putting it together and getting it up there, shooting it up in the air in a rocket and so forth. So, by comparison, that's nothing compared to who has made the planets and is keeping them in their orbits perfectly for millions of years, maybe eternally. And by comparison, we can learn things. If we avoid comparing things, then we stay ignorant, we stay limited in our understanding. So, what is the understanding that we should have? Just like there are human beings who are using their intelligence to put little Sputniks in the air, there's a supreme intelligence that puts these planets in the air and holds them in the air, you know, for millions of years. So therefore, there has to be a supreme intelligence in the universe because of the apparent organization and predictability of the universe. Like, for example, when they predict that it's going to rain, how can they do that? Because there are certain things that are organized and predictable in nature. And that means that there's an intelligence behind it. Like if you look at the almanac, they'll tell you what's going to happen, you know, like 6 months from now. So there is the predictability of nature because it's being controlled by someone. Just like if you go to see, you want to go see a movie, and they tell you, you know, what time to come, and they tell you, you know, there are going to be 3 or 4 movies in this cinema place, and it's all predictable. So in the same way, the movement of the planets are predictable. And how does that happen? It's only because it's being controlled by supreme intelligence. Nothing happens, nothing predictable happens by accident. It happens by intelligence and superior intelligence to control these forces of nature. So the so-called most intelligent people, the scientists and the philosophers, they ignore this. They ignore it. If you put a Sputnik in the air and it takes so much money and so many people and so much time, and you keep it there for, you know, let's say a year, with so much, let's say, maintenance, etc. Now, let's compare that to the planets that are in the air also. And they're being maintained in perfect orbits for hundreds, millions of years. So we have to understand that there are superior living entities who know how to do this. The demigods, and there are demigods. In fact, there's another thing. They're still trying to figure out if there are any people on Mars or if there are any people on the moon, you know. But the Bhagavatam says there's people on every planet. And there's people on the sun planet also. Viva Swan is on the sun planet. These are living entities. And there's living entities everywhere in the ocean. There are living entities that live on the bottom of the ocean where there's no oxygen. You know, they discovered a whole bunch of new species in the North Pole, living at the bottom, of the North Pole, where there's hardly any oxygen at all, but still they're living. Why don't you look that up on the internet? So you see, we haven't really completely explored the Earth. There's still many, many things about the Earth that we don't understand. We've never gone more than a few miles into the crust of the Earth. But if you read the Bhagavatam, you'll see that there is another world, a world beneath the surface of the Earth, and it's possible to reach it. Just like in the history of there's histories where devotees have gone underneath the surface of the Earth to other civilizations that are there. Did you see that? What's it say?
Biologists discover deep sea fish where there is virtually no oxygen.
Yeah. And where is that? The North Pole. Yeah. You see, where there's virtually no oxygen. It's just amazing, you know. And when they did begin to see those forms of fish living in virtually no oxygen, there were many different types, not just one type of fish. There were many different types of fish. So, you see, they haven't even explored the Earth yet. There's still many, many new things that they're going to find in the Earth. And as they find them, their theories keep changing about, how it all happened. Okay, so it says here, Bhagavad Gita 14.4. Let's see what that says. Bhagavad Gita 14.4. Bhagavad Gita 14.4. Huh? Sarvayone Sukonte, yes. Murtaya Sambhavantiya Tasam Brahma Mahadyunir Aham Bija Pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. Now, if you understand just this one verse, you become educated. There is a supreme seed-giving Father of all living things. His name is Krishna. And you understand that everything starts usually with something microscopic, right? And then it grows. So seeds are miraculous things. Like you get the seed of a banyan tree, it's pretty small. But in that small little seed, you can grow a gigantic banyan tree with hundreds and thousands of more seeds. You have to think about these things, this is a miracle. How is it happening that they can put so much energy into a little seed like that? So, obviously the scientists have their theories, and the devotees of the Lord have maybe different theories. Now, which theory is valid? You have to ask that question. Well, when the scientists make their theories up about how all these things are happening, They don't mention anything about Krishna. You ever see them? They're writing a paper and they say, well, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna did this. And no, they would be rejected right away. But when devotees talk about these things, yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen by itself. Nothing happens by itself, right? And how do they explain, the first amoeba? Where did that come from? Well, they
Yeah.
say, well, we don't know where the first amoeba came, but we know what happens after it came. We know the story after the first amoeba came. So, no, real science is origin, and then all the things that happen in the middle, and everything that happens at the end. That means you have real knowledge. They don't have knowledge of any origins. They don't even care about origins. And because of that, it's not real science. You know. And therefore, there are many mysteries still in the so-called modern science because they can't figure out the origins. Of course, they'll never talk about Krishna. They'll never talk about, the supernatural powers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, Sarvayona Sequantea. In this verse, it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original father of all living entities. Well, there you go. You see, you don't read that in your science books, biology or whatever, but we read it here. This is real biology. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. In this verse, it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original Father of all living entities. The living entities are combinations of the material nature and the spiritual nature. Such living entities are seen not only on this planet, but on every planet, even on the highest where Brahma is situated. You see, we have knowledge about the whole universe. The scientists don't have knowledge about the whole universe. And they don't know that in every planet in the universe there are living entities. They're not sure. They haven't seen it yet. Right? They haven't gone there yet. But the Bhagavatam has all this information. And it says, the living entities are combinations of the material nature and the spiritual nature. Such living entities are seen not only on this planet, but on every planet, even on the highest, where Brahma is situated. Everywhere there are living entities. Within the earth, there are living entities, even within water and within fire. Now, have you ever heard that there are living entities living in fire? Well, scientists never say anything about that, you see. But there are. So, everywhere there are living entities within the earth, there are living entities even within water and within fire. All these appearances are due to the mother, material nature, and Krishna's seed-giving process. The purport is that the material world is impregnated with living entities who come out in various forms at the time of creation according to their past deeds. So now it's talking about karma. But you see, everything starts, everything starts with a seed. Like for example, we have so many different seeds here. And the same thing is there for living entities. So many different seeds, so many different fathers, so many different mothers, so many different seeds. All these things are helping us. All these explanations are helping us not to be parochial in our understanding of nature and the existence of God. When you become parochial, you avoid the essence of things and just talk about some things without really giving thorough explanation. So, the thorough explanation, if there's no understanding of God, then it's completely incomplete. And because it remains incomplete, you don't actually know what the truth is. So it says, everywhere there are living entities within the earth, there are living entities even within water and within fire. All these appearances are due to the mother, material nature, and Krishna's seed-giving process. That's something we should study more carefully. Krishna's seed-giving process. We can see it when it comes to plants and things like that, but there's more. The seed-giving process goes into producing living entities also, and so many other things. It's a great science. The purport is that the material world is impregnated with living entities who come out in various forms at the time of creation according to their past deeds. Oh my God, now we're going to start talking about karma, right? And how, and the modes of material nature. The whole science is in that one sentence there. There are modes of material nature, it's karma, and there is time, yeah. All these things that are happening that we have to take into, you have to consider to understand how things are actually happening. It's not just happening in some mysterious way. There are, you can understand more and more about that mystery by carefully reading Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is giving the whole picture. It might be using different types of, let's say, methods and examples than the scientists, but it's giving the whole picture if we read it carefully. Okay. So now, it says, material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. Purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the living entity, because he is transcendental, has nothing to do with this material nature. Still, because he has become conditioned by the material world, he is acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature. Because living entities have different kinds of bodies in terms of the different aspects of nature, they are induced to act according to that nature. This is the cause of the varieties of happiness and distress. Now, this little purport is extremely profound. Because, first of all, most people don't understand that there are such things as modes of material nature that control our activities. We're under their control. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. And the mixtures of the goodness, passion, and ignorance. That means there's millions of mixtures of the three. You take three basic colors, what are they? Green, blue, and yellow, something like that. Oh, red, okay. Yeah. So, but how many colors can you make from those three colors? Unlimited number, right? So the same thing is happening in nature with the three modes of material nature. Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and the eternal. Living entity comes in contact with nature, Almighty Arjuna, and becomes conditioned by these three modes. Now, how many combinations are there of the three modes of nature? So many, right? That's why you see all, you have the Mongolians, and you have, the Russians, and you have, so many different types of people. And then if you go on other planets, there's more different types of people, right? The Bhagavatam doesn't just talk about what's on the earth; it talks about what's in the whole planet, in the whole space, creation. So you see, there's tremendous variety of things, and it's all controlled by these three modes of material nature. And as long as we are conditioned as human beings by the three modes of material nature, we cannot really escape the cycle of birth and death. We have to rise above the three modes. And Krishna tells that to Arjuna. So rise above the three modes. So how do you rise above the three modes? You engage in transcendental activities. The main thing is not being attracted to anything material, but knowing how to use material things in the service of Krishna, but without any, let's say, sense of proprietorship, because Krishna is the proprietor. We're not the proprietor. So these are hard things to learn because we are conditioned by mundane knowledge. If we learn transcendental knowledge, then we can understand these things. So what is transcendental knowledge? It takes into account that in every effort and every, let's say, endeavor human beings take, the ultimate, let's say, thing that we have to understand is that Krishna is the controller. We're not the controller. And ultimately, we're not really the doer. Krishna is the controller, the doer. He's giving us some intelligence to do things, but that intelligence belongs to him. It's just, he lets us, he gives it to us like borrowing. We're borrowing, but ultimately it belongs to Krishna, and therefore Krishna should be taken into account. There are different things you have to take into account when you're talking about an endeavor, but the most important thing that we should take into account when there's any endeavor is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without his help, we will not be able to successfully do anything. Most people don't take into account Krishna. So therefore, they build a bridge, and then there's an accident, the whole bridge gets knocked down. It costs millions and millions of dollars, right? Because there's an accident. Now, an accident, there's no real accident because everything is under the control of Krishna through the material nature and the modes of material nature. So in order to be successful in any action, we have to take into account Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we ignore that, then we will make some mistake or many mistakes, and the whole thing will fail. Like, for example, right now the Israelis have a, let's say, a strategy of trying to completely eliminate the Muslims, or not Muslims, but the people in Palestine. Yeah, Hamas. Well, not only Hamas. They say Hamas, but they want to eliminate the whole Palestinian, eliminate them completely physically, or at least push them out completely from that whole area. Let them all live in Jordan and some other country. So ultimately, massacre and genocide doesn't really solve a problem, and it's never really completely successful. You can massacre and try and do a big genocide to eliminate a whole race of people, and still there won't be some. The Israelis don't understand. Many people don't. Many countries don't understand it, where there's massive killing. So we have to understand we're not the controller, and when we understand that uh, and begin to depend on Krishna and get instruction from Krishna and his devotees, at that time our activities can be successful. Without that, even we have missiles and bombs and everything, you're not going to be able to control the situation. Ultimately, all the bombs that you throw, still people will be living, and still people will reproduce and come back again. Yeah. Okay.
There's one question. It is claimed that due to medical advances, human average lifespan has increased over decades. How can we explain this in Sanskrit way?
It's not true. It's not true. Look, there's one thing. Statistics don't lie, but the people that make the statistics can lie. So it depends how you're counting. Uh, of course, you know. So I would say that's very let's say uh, very susceptible of being challenged. That statement. And the statement is what? What is the statement again?
That due to medical advances, human average lifespan has increased over decades.
It depends what your example is. I mean, sample data. If you take a small sample data, you get one result. You take a much bigger one, you get one result. Get a much bigger one, you get another result. So, yeah, the one thing is sure: you'll never be able to eliminate the living entities. No matter what you do, you're never going to eliminate. And the duration of life, is that what they're talking about? Lifespan. Lifespan is decreased tremendously. It hasn't increased, it's decreased. It used to be 100,000 years, and it went down to 10,000 years. Then it went down to 1,000 years, and now it's 100 years. But it's still going on, and there's no information about about it, you know, decreasing, from any more than that. So, so it depends which culture or which no, let's say way you calculate things. If you calculate things in only one yuga, then you're not going to come up with the right answer. So, better we just stick to the Vedic tradition. That way we won't make any mistakes. Haribol, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Oh, and the question.
Any other questions? You on the call, please. If there are no questions, we'll see you again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.